Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are.
Can you talk about, in the student-teacher relationship, like we're more used to seeing authority figures in a hierarchical sense?
Well, spiritual life, when you're still practicing, is an apprenticeship. So just like you would go to somebody who knows how to cook to learn how to cook, or somebody who knows how to do woodwork to know how to do woodwork, or you would just study with a physicist if you wanted to learn physics, it's exactly the same thing. For me, there's no question of hierarchy. And the only authority that comes is from embodied experience and understanding and knowledge. In this culture today, people have feelings about not even wanting anyone to be related to as someone who has more knowledge than you, which is kind of a funny thing. But in any case, it really isn't a question of any kind of authoritarianism, but there is authority in having experience and being able to impart that experience and skill to other people. From my perspective, that is really the wonder of the human realm, that we get help. That we live in a very individualized culture, and people actually brag about not getting help. People brag about, I did this myself, which is such complete nonsense. Because we can't do anything by ourselves, not anything. Every breath that we take is produced by the whole planet. We cannot do anything. We are completely dependent on everyone and everything, completely. So this idea that we're doing anything on our own is utter nonsense. And yet we have teachers who can teach us things like cooking, like how to brew an espresso. When you go and get a job as a barista, someone teaches you how to do that. We have people that teach us things in school. We have parents who teach us things. We have spiritual teachers who teach us things. And what would life be like if we didn't have those people to teach us? Horrible. I've always loved having knowledgeable teachers, and I've always loved being in the position of an apprentice. Apprenticeship to me is something that arises within the context of wisdom traditions and the arts. Because we have certain forms of understanding and skill that are infinite. We can never truly accomplish them. We can never really become masters of them. And they're traditions, like healing and music and anything like that, where the more skillful you become in them, the more you realize that they're infinite and there's no such thing as mastery. Which is, to me, a wonderful, wonderful thing. Like, to have something that just never expires, that you can keep learning, is, to me, marvelous. I love that. And I've always loved being in relationship with my teachers, especially in spiritual traditions, because they have so many layers. Like, the relationship with a teacher in a direct realization tradition is just infinitely nuanced. It has that quality of infinity that I really, really love. Like, you can't exhaust it, and you can never be less subtle than you are. For instance, when you go to see a psychotherapist, I'm sure all of you have had this experience, if you've even gone to one or two psychotherapists or therapists, and you have to look around because most of them, they just don't have enough subtlety to actually deal with you. So you have this experience of just feeling like, okay, well, maybe this person can help me, but they really don't have the perceptual subtlety to really do what I need them to do. And then if you feel very, very, very lucky if you happen to find somebody that has that subtlety. But in the world of spiritual teachers, in the relationship with the teacher, even if the teacher is a crappy teacher, that infinity of subtlety is still there. If there's anything being taught at all, if it's not just a big fake. I'm not talking about teachers that don't know what they're talking about at all. There's just this incredible subtlety that you can never outrun. It's always outrunning you. I really, really love that. And I think we have a problem, some of us these days, because we don't like to be outrun. We don't like to feel like something's bigger than we are. And instead of feeling inspired by that and enjoying it, there's a lot of people who feel demeaned by it. This is something that I learned fairly early on when I first started teaching. And I would sometimes tell stories about my own teachers, or I would mention something that had happened to me that was more extraordinary, and a certain subset of students would feel badly about it. Like they would feel like it was demeaning them or making them feel small. Whereas my experience hearing about my own teachers and reading about all the incredible things that have gone on in this realm has only been 100% inspiration and just feeling amazement. One of the best things about relating to Ma as a teacher is that you can never, ever, 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 ever hope to surpass her. So anything that you have in your heart or your mind that you're somehow going to become better than your teacher or whatever was completely blasted out of the water. It just isn't even an option. That to me is just fantastic. It's like fantastic medicine. Or sometimes students will say to me, if I talk about some feeling of vulnerability or upsetness or difficulty that I'm having, some students will say, it's really good to hear you talking about you feeling badly too. I'm like, wow, that is so unsympathetic. So I think we have a problem relating to teachers because we want them to be extraordinary so they can save us, but we want them to be mediocre so that they don't make us feel small. And that's a big problem. In any case, I don't think there is any hierarchy in the sense of authoritarianism. Of course, there's teachers who will try to convince you that there is. Many teachers. But that is definitely not part of the tradition at all. We should respect people who have more knowledge than we do. I mean, what is the problem? When I first started teaching, and even before that, when I just started writing, when I was purely a student, I started writing this blog called Living Tantra. And my goal for writing that was to, in one sense, to show the ordinariness of spiritual practice, what it was really like, rather than all the bells and whistles and flashing lights and stuff. And when I started teaching, I really felt committed to just showing up as I am so that other people would have permission to do that too. I figure if I can, for years make mistakes at kirtan, which I'm just doing naturally, I'm not faking it. That kind of gives other people permission to perform badly also. But now I really feel more committed to it, just showing up as I am, even more committed to not holding anything back or hiding anything, whatever it is, whether it's the extraordinary or the ordinary or the mediocre. Because so many teachers are not doing that. And then they are not giving their students a ground to stand on. Your only ground that you have is you as you actually are. And so if the teachers are, in a sense, presenting a persona, which is so, so, so common, even in the smallest ways, like, what they wear and how they talk and what they don't say. I think a lot of what's happened around what's going on in the world right now and the genocide is that people are not saying things in order to maintain a persona. And to any extent that anybody does that, they're really cheating their students, I think. And I just feel like of all the times in human history, this is the time when teachers just need to come out as they are and be messy and take more risks and give us all permission to do that and be more real. Because if we're not going to be real, we're not going to be here. That's just what's going to happen.
Does this tradition say anything about the news of the world and if it's okay to simply turn it off?
There's no blanket rule like that. This tradition doesn't say anything about how anybody should show up. It says that we should wake up, and then however we show up is fine. But since most of us are far from that, we do have to make decisions on other bases than being totally woken up. Right? We're not enlightened. So if we were enlightened, whatever we decided would be completely fine. And whatever we decide is completely fine in any case. I think, though, that for someone in a regular position in respect to what's happening in the rest of the world, there's kind of a good thing to consider. And this is, for a lot of momentous decisions, a good thing to consider. Looking back on what you're doing now, as you're dying, how would you feel about it? You can do that as a meditation. Imagine yourself on your deathbed and you're looking back at your life and you think about this period of time and what you did or didn't do. How are you going to feel about that? The other way of doing this, which has been suggested by a lot of people, is especially if you have younger kids or grandkids who are going to grow up and be educated about this period of time, and they're going to ask you, what did you do? Are you going to be comfortable with the answer that you give them?
I want to know, what were you like before you found this tradition? Like, what were you like?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that question.
Like your job, what was your job and what did you do? And stuff like that.
Well, my first jobs that I had as a teenager and a young adult were working in restaurants. Everything from washing dishes to cooking to waiting tables. And then when I got older, in my early 20s to mid 20s, I worked doing tenant organizing in New York City. And then what did I do? Oh yeah, I worked in nonprofits. I worked for farm workers' rights organization for a while. And then I went back to school and I was doing fundraising for social justice organizations, basically. I was in school for a long time, getting higher education, and I was doing a lot of practice too. So lots of things happened after that. But when I was young, I was working in restaurants, basically. I always loved to cook. I was probably a lot more intolerable than I am now. I hope I'm less intolerable now. But but I think that something that was the same as it is now is that I always wanted people to be more free. I wanted people to be able to express themselves more freely and be more freely creative and just make freer choices in their lives. That was something that was there from whenever I can remember, as far back as I can remember, and wanting people to be kinder to each other.
I have a question that some people might already know the answer to, but I'm curious, when we do the Gyatri in the mornings, why the bindu in the heart center is blue?
Blue is the color of the unconditioned. It's the color of a blue cloudless sky. I think is the thing that makes it most understandable, that if we are looking into a blue cloudless sky, we're looking into something that has no boundaries, that gives us a feeling of vastness. And this is why blue in both Trika and Dzogchen is associated with what we could call the absolute or the unconditioned or pure Shiva nature or something like that. The bindu is what I call a living symbol. It is something that is symbolic, but it's also related to the thing that it's symbolizing. In us, the blue bindu in the heart space is a living symbol of the fact that we are being emitted from the absolute. All of our uniqueness, the form of our bodies, our personality, our karmas, our limitations, our skills, are all being emitted from the absolute as a kind of creative production. And that blue bindu is a living symbol in our heart space of all of that enlightened essence nature, all of that wisdom and virtue that's giving rise to who we are. So it's a way of focusing in on that, one of many ways, not the only way, that is held in common by Trika and Dzogchen. The heart space itself is a living symbol, or a microcosm, may be a better way of putting it, of that access to wisdom that we have, of the possibility of accessing that unconditioned wisdom. We can focus in on the heart space and have more of a possibility of a direct experience of that. Whatever we're finding in the heart space is everywhere. It's not just in our heart space, and everywhere else is like crap. But we need focal points. We need focal points like temples and schools and teachers and symbols and channels, and all those things are focal points that help us to more easily have an encounter with living presence. But blue is the color of the unconditioned. It's also the color of space element.
Is space element closer to the unconditioned?
Yes, that openness or vastness. But this space, our ordinary space, is also a living symbol. It's also a microcosm. All of outer space is a microcosm. It's a living symbol of that vastness of mind, the vastness of awareness. There's a common metaphor in Hinduism that everything is as large as infinity and as small as a grain of sand. And I never really understood that. I tried to sort of think my way into understanding that, but I couldn't. And then I realized, oh, there actually is no space. Everything is awareness. And so everything is either very large or very small. It doesn't really matter, because all of our experience of size is being produced by this awareness outside of space and time. It took me many years to know that. That's why in that Doha, I can't remember what it's called, but one of the lines is, the sky above is a symbol of the nature of your mind. That's what that means.
We don't talk a lot in this tradition about the bliss part. Is there a living symbol of that aspect of reality?
Well, we have some ideas of bliss in Western culture, that it's just some like extra super duper feeling good. And that isn't really what's meant, but the word that we're translating as bliss is ananda. And that word is really not encompassed by the translation bliss. It's really not what it means particularly. It's just one of those words in another language that we don't have a word for. So what it really means is something like profound appreciation, I think, is much closer than bliss. And that appreciation which expresses itself in your whole body, energy, and mind. But it is born out of recognition of the nature of the self. When there is that recognition, it is never anything that you just witness or see or view from like across the room. It's like, oh, I see the nature of things over there. When you have that recognition, it's embodied. You feel it in your whole body, energy, and mind. You don't just see it with your eyes or comprehend it with your intellect or something like that. It is non-different from a kind of full experience. You recognize it with everything. It said, Lord Shiva is in this condition of ananda. It's like this blissful immersion in his own nature, and this incredible appreciation of that, of what he actually is, or it actually is. There's all kinds of like nervous system excitations, people like ramping up their nervous system in various ways that gets mistaken for spiritual stuff. But none of that is it. It's not possible to describe it. The best way I've come up with is this just profound delight. I think delight in something. It's not just like, I'm having an experience of bliss. It's like delight in all of this. It's not this inward focused thing. I mean, in a sense, when I talk about the blue bindu and I say, merge yourself with that, experience its dynamism, I'm trying to give you an opening to that, because that ananda is incredibly dynamic and so blazingly alive that it might be hard to tolerate at first. It's like you have to get used to it. It's so blazingly alive and it's so full of clarity that you might encounter it and then purposefully turn away from it because it was just too much. It's like if you had glasses for your entire being, all the cells in your body and your energy and your mind that made you see whatever is 100 times more than 20/20. So I don't know about a symbol for that, but certainly that blue bindu, if you really felt the qualities of it, you would feel something like that. But again, it's not like a personal experience that you're trying to achieve or maintain. It's always involves everything and everyone. It's never just your individual experience. It always wants to give. It's very fountain-like. I don't know if that's at all making sense. Satsang with Shambhavi is produced by Jayakula, a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. If you enjoyed listening, please help us keep this podcast and many other teachings open to all by making a monthly or one-time donation. Visit jayakula.org to make a donation and explore more of our offerings.